Warren from the Educators Room. Tonight we have a special guest. Michelle, can you introduce yourself for us?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Williams from Ignited, hashtag Urban Ed Chat. And I am a fifth grade math teacher here in Houston, Texas, whoop whoop, HISD. I've been teaching for about 15 years, and I am happy to be here.
Okay, so tonight we're going to start. Michelle has started to write for us at the Educators Room. And you guys know I love to hop on here and talk to our writers about all things education. So I want to start with, because I am an English teacher. So I've taught English for about 15 years also. And so math is a world that is totally, it is foreign to me. So I want to talk about first, what brought you into the field of education? How did you become a teacher? Did you go for it in college? Was it a later in life decision? Like, how did you become a teacher?
I started out as a teacher. Actually, I wanted to be a nurse practitioner. I come from a family of educators. I have two brothers that are actually principals, and my great grandmother was an educator, and my grandmother was in the social work field, and my mother was a nurse. So we come from a long line of social service type of careers. And I am a true education major. I graduated from Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with my bachelor's degree in elementary education and a master's in curriculum instruction and technology. So that's how I got started.
So you teach fifth grade math. So back, I taught for about 8 years in Memphis City schools, the old Memphis City schools. It's no longer there. But I was friends with the math teacher. She was a 10th grade math teacher, and we would always talk. And her husband was an elementary teacher. And she would always come to work with all these funny stories about her husband teaching math. And she was like, you know, he doesn't know what he's doing, because she had a very specific way of teaching math. And she said he didn't do what she wanted him to do in teaching math. So the first question that I have to ask you is there a right or wrong way to teach math? And if it is, tell us.
I don't think there's a right or wrong way to teach math, because everybody's processing skills of how they process different algorithms and how to come up with answers is totally different. So it's really about the thinking behind the that drives whether you're going to get the computation correct or not. And it has to be logical. In my classroom, most of the time I tell my students, I said, you can either do it my way, and if they say, well, I have another way of doing it, they have to get it correct 100% of the time and actually be able to explain it and teach it to someone else. And if most of the time, most of the kids will say, well, I can't explain it. Well, it's not a logical process, and it's not something that's going to actually be able to be replicated over and over again.
Okay, so you brought up a good point. So of course, I coach literacy, and I had a counterpart who coached math, and she's from India. And one of her main things was kids have to be able to tell you why. If they can't tell you why, I really know it. And so she would, even with high school kids in calculus, pre-algebra, math too, she had the kids explaining their answers. What do you do? Right, I'm sure there have been a lot of misconceptions, right, that kids have about certain things like that. How do you, I'm assuming you guys are departmentalized, right?
We are.
Okay. So how do you clear up those misconceptions, especially for those kids who are lower performers, the kids who come in, they don't know their multiplication tables, or they have trouble adding? How do you clear up those misconceptions and still go along with the curriculum?
Misconceptions, I think, are something that we battle in every content area. I think more so in math and science. When I come in contact with students that are struggling learners and they have all these misconceptions, we start from the basics. When I teach every year, I teach as if the kids don't know anything. So because it's easier to press on the gas than it is to press on the brake. Because once you put it out there, it's done. So we start and we have conversations about different concepts. There are certain things in math that we know that they're going to have misconceptions about fractions. Fractions is something that has been everybody's Achilles heel. And I've gone into fractions before we left for the holiday, and the kids were cross multiplying. And I was like, that's really not teaching children how to compare fractions. So what we do is we start with models, and models basically will clear up most of those misconceptions about different concepts in math. Because the way that I see it, the brain thinks in pictures. It does not think in numbers. Numbers are very abstract. So we take it back to the model and we start moving things around. The kids, okay, oh, I get it. I can actually see why it's this way.
On Facebook the other day, and it might have been one of our writers. Or maybe it was an article, but somebody had used Legos to teach fractions.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking on the Facebook page where people Legos it's a good visual for kids. Like, what kind of things parents can use and teachers in case they're struggling right now in December and they're dreading going January to teach fractions?
Well, with the new standards in Texas, they say new standards, but they're still the Common Core standards under the disguise of TEAC. They're doing a lot of models, even with area models. When I go out and talk to teachers and I'm at these conferences and we talk about models and fractions and things, I tell them do not start with the area model. The area model is where you want to end up. You can start with very basic with fraction wheels, which are very simple for students. And we don't stick with the same model. We use different models. I've used color tiles. I've used the area model. I've used the tape diagram to show different ways fractions can appear. And then you have fractions of a set. You can use candy bar. You can use a lot of different things to get the kids to understand what a fraction looks like with using a model. So it just depends on what the children need. My students, we always start behind in math, so I start basic and then I build up to complex with that area model.
Okay. So the next question I have, in elementary school, in high school, we're all departmental teachers or ELA teachers, science teachers or science teachers. Have you seen any benefits? Is there a benefit of departmentalizing in the 5th grade, or in your opinion, should you depart to get out of that 2nd grade and that K to second grade? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of think that it's more beneficial in grades 3 through 5. However, at the school that I am at, they do use it 1 through 5. I haven't seen, because I'm on the tail end of getting the children, so I see everybody's teaching. So as they come to me, I really haven't seen any benefit from being departmentalized because the kids still are coming with the same weaknesses. Based on what I know, when you departmentalize, it really cuts your time in half. And I feel like those lower grade teachers, K through 2, they need more instructional time with their teacher and not be so split or segmented and divided among those other teachers. But that's just my opinion.
Do you think, so one of the questions that we've had, and is there, so you haven't seen a benefit, but do you think, because I know one of your first articles was about the content knowledge of elementary school teachers. Like, you guys have great, and I say you guys, since we teach elementary, that's great strategy, right? Right. Like, high school people will go in and be like, oh my God, I didn't even think to do that. And sometimes lacking. And I say that not only math, but sometimes as an ELA teacher, go in to these classrooms and you see elementary school teachers who have great strategies, but many times, like some of those nuances that we see that need to be taught, the content. A little bit about that, because you spoke about it in your article.
What I've noticed, because I've taught middle school and elementary school, and what I've noticed is that teachers in elementary school, they tend to teach math how they were taught, regardless of what the curriculum is saying. They only know how to teach what they were taught, because when, like, I'm an elementary major, and they didn't teach us how to teach math. They taught us how to teach reading, because that was the focus in elementary school. So teachers are kind of flapping in the wind in elementary school, because they don't really understand how the pieces for math connect and how they're supposed to build from grade level to grade level. They don't understand about the vertical alignment, even where multiplication and division, how they're inverses of each other, but yet they are connected. And they really if the kids can learn multiplication, they really can learn division too, because it's really the opposite. You're just taking it apart. Multiplication basically puts it into groups. So they really don't know how to connect those. And the only way to connect those is to really invest in um, training the teachers, because they're not going to come with the training. I know now, I think they're doing more with it because of Common Core, and all of these middle school standards have been pushed down to elementary. So I think we're seeing a more influx of teachers who understand how to teach the math a little bit better.
That brings me to my next question, because Common Core has been and in Texas you guys don't have Common Core. But it's kind of like Georgia, you don't have Common Core, but you have GSC, which is basically Common Core with 2 words changed.
Right.
What is your opinion of Common Core math for elementary school? And a lot of people have started to say it's too much, too early. What are your thoughts on that? Is it in the right path, or is there a lot of tuning that needs to be done to make the math more developmentally appropriate?
I think that was great for American educators, because it not only challenges the students, it also challenges the teachers' pedagogy as well as their content knowledge. And when I talk to teachers, and when they say, "Oh, it's too much and the kids can't get this," is it because the teacher's not comfortable with the, and is she able to bring it down to a level where the children can understand? Because I taught first grade last year, and the concept, because I have taught other grade levels, I could see how they connect together. Well, in elementary school, generally most teachers stay in the same grade level. They don't move up and down. So if you've never taught beyond what the grade level you're at, you don't know where they're going, so you can't connect it. And that's really one of the in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, we were talking about how one of the Berkeley College professors was talking about what early grade teachers need to know. The first thing he said was they need to know math beyond their actual grade level, so they can put the pieces together, but they don't. It's not happening in elementary education at all.
So that brings it brings me to another point. If there was anything in Common Core that you would change, what would it be? As far as like elementary or even middle, like, is there anything that you see that you're saying, no, I don't agree with that, but I like the overall feel of the conceptualism?
I think that they're pushing a lot of the stuff down into 5th grade too soon. I think they still need to split it between 5th and 6th grade. And I understand the push for them and getting them ready for the algebra concept, but 5th grade is too much in there. Like, they put all the decimals, all the fractions into one grade level, and they're not ready for that. It's too much. And then the concepts are very complex, and the children are not used to that. So I think the intention was good. However, in reality, it's proven challenging even for myself to get those concepts in, especially for kids that are struggling with math.
One of the things, a really good friend of mine, she's a calculus math teacher. And
Mhm.
one of the things that she has proposed is that as a teacher who teaches math, whatever your grade level is, if you teach math, you need to be, just like you said, you need to be exposed to all levels of math. So you
Right.
almost need to, and she said you almost need to go to school continually for the new math. She said,
Right.
because what you learned 15 years ago isn't applicable now, and now you have teachers who are having to learn it as they go. And so she has proposed for the district that I'm in that teachers kind of go through summer training to teach each other this new math, clear up misconceptions, because she's a math major. She has her PhD in math. And she says a lot of the things, the reason why she's been able to teach it to other teachers is because she's getting that training. But she said if you're not in school for it, it's kind of, you don't know what's going on. It's difficult. So do you agree, disagree?
I agree. I agree 100% because I have gone back to the community college and taken some college algebra courses. Even though I teach elementary, I still can have conversations about algebra and talk to middle school teachers because that's where my students are going and understand what I need to put into my math lessons to prepare them. For example, I don't teach scale factor in fifth grade. However, I know scale factor is going to be a big issue in sixth, seventh, and eighth grade because it lends itself to proportionality. So I've already brought that language into fifth grade. Also, if a teacher does not keep up with the trends in mathematics, she really doesn't. She's not keeping her skill set sharpened, and we get lost when they start changing things. Like even with me, I wasn't a graph and calculator baby. We did everything by hand. So graphing calculators is something that's new to a lot of educators that were in high school in 92 because graphing calculators, we didn't use those until college. And still then, it wasn't done a whole lot. So I definitely agree it's something that we need to do on a regular basis, take math courses because it keeps our skill set sharpened.
Mm. And that's really interesting because we just had this conversation on our page about the question came, teachers always say we need to be paid more, but what does more look like? And I said in a conversation with you and another, I think teacher salary should start at 50,000. Get your master's, I think all you should pay for it. And I think that, I have a whole bunch of it's a whole nother show. But when you talk about training for a teacher making $1,000 a year, it's not feasible for them to go back to school. They can't afford it. They're probably working a second job.
Right.
So, to what we were saying. Now, to change things up a bit, I love to. Can you tell them a little bit about what got you into blogging, kind of, and then we'll go on to the chat. So, it gives us. I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Um, I moved to Louisiana about 5, 6 years ago. And, I just kind of became stagnant here in Houston. So I moved and it wasn't too far away. And when I moved to Louisiana, I was just taken aback to about the way that their school system was run and the lack of resources that the teachers have had and the lack of really quality professional development. So once, I realized I was like, wow, I really was fortunate because in Texas, NHISD did a really good job of training us and sending us to trainings. And, I always felt like I had the resources necessary or that I could go sign up for training and get the training that I needed. Well, when I moved there, it just was kind of like, wow, they're missing so much. And once I started blogging, I realized that a lot of teachers were in that same predicament. because once you're in a large district, and you have to understand that HISD is the 5th largest school district in the nation. So it has a lot of resources. And I didn't realize that there were teachers out there that needed tips and things to help them in their classroom because they may have been in a smaller district. So that's how I got into the blogging.
Okay. And, that's very interesting because your story is kind of I can remember starting the site and asking people to write for the site and telling people what it was going to be about, and people literally being like, no, I'm good. No, they just didn't see a need for it.
Right.
Then as we started to go on and we started to do different things, we're like, oh, that's a really good idea. What have you allowed district? Where have you been able to find your kind of happy place in giving people information?
In my school district, I was out of the classroom for 2 years, but I went back to the classroom because I realized that teachers, they like camaraderie, and I felt like I could get more with teachers on their level. I don't know, for some reason it's a us against them type of mentality when a teacher moves out of the classroom. So I kind of felt like, okay, and even at the school that I'm at now, they seem to be more receptive to the ideas that I have because I'm in the classroom and I feel basically we're at the same level. So for me, that's a happy medium, and I'm still able to go outside of the classroom and still provide professional development for teachers and bring the things and the struggles that I go through to them to show them that I go through the same things. I'm not perfect. And at the same time, I understand what instructional coaches go through because it's a struggle dealing with some teachers. It really is. So it's kind of just like my happy place and happy medium between, I'm able to work with students and still affect change, but not necessarily be outside of the classroom.
And I think you brought up a good point, as years in the district, and then I coached when I was in Tennessee, but coaches, especially coaches, but just coaches period, breakdown of what is expected of coaches is the reality for coaches. You to be in the class, give them great strategies, but there's the other side of it where teachers don't want, they need it, or there's the other side, principals have pitted, and now telling teachers have this weird power struggle.
Right.
So going back into the classroom. Yeah. What'd you say?
I couldn't hear you because it was breaking up for a second.
Okay. And so you have this weird relationship with instructional coaches and teachers. So what's been the hardest thing going back into the classroom? Has there been anything hard? And so, like, how do you, because you've been out of 2 years, especially if you've been a coach, sometimes it's difficult, and we have to, sometimes people come have had to deal with, or what are some of the things that you have had to get used to again?
That's funny that you would ask because I'm going through that right now. The one thing that I have had to get used to is that I have these coaches that my capacity is beyond theirs. And I have had to kind of tell myself that that's not my lane anymore. So I am more reserved in that regard because I do see where things can be better, but I reserve my opinion and I kind of just try to stay in my lane as much as I can until I'm asked. And I'm not there to step on anybody's toes or make anybody feel intimidated by what I know, but I'm there to help if needed. But I mean, it has been an adjustment. It really has. Um, and that's really basically it. And really, another issue I always deal with is principals trying to move me out of the classroom. Because I don't feel like the instructional coach role is for me inside of the school district, because I feel like I won't be able to affect teachers, because your hands are tied, you have other duties, and I just feel like you're not able to do what you're there for. It has more so that I've seen become more of an administrative or a lower level administrative for the administrator. So I choose not to be that.
Mm.
But definitely not trying to help out is one of my biggest issues. So I have to really tell myself on a daily basis that's not my role. And I've had to tell my
Yeah.
principal that this year too. I said that's not my role anymore. I said I know y'all want me to help, and teachers like who they like. So and then it becomes that issue of where it's me pitted against the specialist, and I really don't want that because I'm really there to teach and to do a good job.
And you brought up a good point, because this is something that a lot of times won't be addressed in regular conversations. People don't necessarily know, as a coach, is a little bit my past. Coaches sometimes positions who aren't ready. For you to be an instructional coach, you really need to be the expert in your field, and not just an expert in content, but in relationship building, because a lot of the work that you do as a coach is about relationships you build with your teachers. So if you go into a building and you look down on teachers, you try to tell on teachers, they quickly won't let you help them, and they become ineffective. And then they're going to the classroom and they're saying, okay, so how do you do this? And they don't want the coach to help them. So it's something that it's not talked about a lot. And I don't think people realize what's going on, especially in urban settings, which brings me kind of to my next. You have a really cool event coming up January the 14th, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So take a second and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm new to Twitter, and like you, I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Some days it's great, and other days it's not so great. But I have been participating in these Twitter chats for about a year now. And when I first started out, because it was new, and I was like, oh, I get to talk to these other educators from different countries, different states, and we come up with all these ideas. And it was great for a year. But 2 weeks ago, I had an interesting conversation with three educators from my area, and they're in suburban areas. And love my suburban colleagues, but that's not my purpose or my path. So they just kind of jumped on me, and during the math chat, because I disagreed with the way that they said that they did instruction. I said, because I teach in an urban area, my students are behind, I may have to do it this way. And one lady told me, oh, well, you can't front load thinking. And I was like, wow. So I said, you know what? I'm an avid fan of TDJ. And he always talks about destiny. And he talks about if you know it's a better way, you go ahead and create another way. So I always felt like, urban educators, we don't have a platform. We don't have a voice. Actually, reformers for urban education have a voice, and they speak from us, for us. So I said, you know what better way to create a platform for educators, for urban educators, and discuss the things that are pertinent to what we do and the challenges that we face every day. Because our needs are totally different. My students, and when the suburban teachers were talking about, oh, they could do this at home for homework, I can barely get homework turned in. So they really could not understand where I was coming from. So when we connect with other urban educators, we know what it's like. Kids coming to school hungry, not having resources. Kids still don't have access to internet at home. How do we do this? And it's an exchange of ideas and things that have helped us along the way. And to get some of the veteran principals and district personnel who have ideas that have helped them as well to thrive in these situations, because there are some veteran educators that have been out there for years and doing a great job, but don't have the platform to speak out about it and the things that work for them in their schools. So that's how Urban Educator Check came along.
And I think that's a really important conversation many times on Twitter with people. I think we were discussing something, and somebody asked me something with my students, because I taught for about 9 schools, and then I came to the metro Atlanta area and did the rest of my time. But what worked for her in suburban schools doesn't necessarily work for me in urban. And so I think that's important in what you're saying, in that we face very challenges who have extreme poverty. And I'm not talking about, because urban education is similar, a little rural education, where they don't have a lot of the resources and they see the poverty. But when you're in a school where 9.9% of the students work in an area, I can remember in Memphis working in an area in the middle of the projects. Like, the projects were literally, government housing was literally like 2 blocks from us, and our kids came, and when something happened in the neighborhood, they brought it to the school, or all of those things that happen so quickly. And we can kind of go off of each other. What are some of the things that you have seen in urban education that you say, other than interacting with people on Twitter, you think happen in urban education that don't see as much in maybe suburban education or in very affluent districts?
I attended Ed Camp Katy. Katy is one of the affluent and supposed to be top-notch school districts in this area. And I'm not knocking the school district, but when I went out there and we were talking, and they were asking me where I was from, and I was like, oh, I'm a teacher in HSD, because I always knew that I wanted to work in an urban school. I never had the desire to work in a suburban school. I like urban education. So when I went out there, and just their facilities are totally different, and the resources and the things that they have, it was amazing. Like, their school bought their book. This book that this lady referred, she told me about the book. I actually went and purchased it myself. Like, all of the stuff is there for them. And she was telling me how the parents do this and the parents do that. I was like, well, if I see a parent, for the most part, I'm doing good. Because in 5th grade, and as you all know, in secondary, as the older it gets, the less and less you see of the parents. You got to catch them. So we don't see parents where the parental involvement is high at those schools. And I'm trying to get parents with right phone numbers, and kids don't know the phone numbers, addresses. So it's just different. It really is. That's one of the things. I was like, these kids don't even know where they live.
Well, in high school, one of the things I can remember, this is about 5 years ago, our principal, the teachers were getting so many wrong phone numbers that we decided to hold everybody's report card, and everybody's parent or guardian had to come up and update their numbers. And it was such foolishness, because people were upset. They had to take off work. But it was so effective because we were able to see parents that we had never seen before. And truth be told, in urban education, people don't believe me, but we had kids who had registered themselves. They had
Right.
registered themselves. They had went and got their paperwork signed by whoever. They registered themselves as 10th graders and they came to school. And so, people are always like, oh my God, how can they do that? No, you can't turn a child away. And teachers were saying, I've never met so and so's mom. He did this in class. I really need to talk to her. And it was so effective for us to get those parents, because what we had a paraprofessional, and maybe it was an instructional coach. They kind of had an office, and every time the parents came up to update their phone numbers and addresses, they took it, and if we had a list of kids like, we need to see their parent. So when the parents would come, we had like somebody would watch someone's class and we'd run and go see them. I mean, but it was crazy. But that's the type of things in urban education that you don't
Right.
have. I just had this conversation with somebody. We were talking about charter schools. And I've been pretty clear on charter schools in that it's not that I support the educators who work there. I swear I do. But I'm very concerned with some charter schools, not all. Some charter schools can pick the kids they want and they get these great scores. And I was telling somebody, it was in a parent group, and the parent worked at KIPP, and she said she was trying to get people to get her kid to go there. And I was trying to give them some other public school options for them. And she was basically like, hey, we work really hard at KIPP. I said, I'm not trying to take what you guys do, but as an urban educator, I see it when Johnny acts up in your school and Johnny gets
They put
back
them.
to us because Johnny
Yep.
has decided to get in trouble. We get him back, and you guys he doesn't have to stay with you guys. You're not his homeschool. So, things for urban educators, it is a lot. I'm pretty sure we could compare lists and just laugh all night about things that we have seen educating our babies, but it's real. Urban educators need a clear channel of support, of laughter, of just reassurance that we are doing things how things are supposed to be done. So I completely agree. I was going to ask you, my mind just went blank. That's what I was going to ask you. For you as a math teacher, have you ever thought about, and with urban ed, I know you work with your teachers in the school and you have been a coach or in a role as a coach. Have you had any success with taking some of your struggles, some of your strategies, some of your successes to some conferences and presenting?
I have. Actually, I have presented at the camp conference here for Texas math teachers. I put in a proposal for NCTM because NCTM won't let you uh, present at their conference until I guess you've had your stripes at other conferences. Also, I'm scheduled to present at the Topsy conference in March. So I'm starting to get out there and really try to make a difference with teachers that are teaching children that have to be taught regardless of what grade level they're on. Because even with me, I teach fifth grade. I have kids that are third graders. How do you address that without pulling your hair out, being frustrated, and taking your purse and go home? Because eventually that's what happens. And I struggle with it myself, but I have learned, how to teach through the vertical alignment, put a little bit of third and fourth grade in there so I can get them to fifth grade. So those are the things that I'm trying to share with other educators through conferences and show them there are different ways, because math is one of those subjects, and it doesn't have to be hard. And that's why in my mathematics educator group, one lady was jumping down my throat because it's supposed to be difficult. And she never responded, but I just told her, I said, math is supposed to make sense. It's not supposed to be difficult. And that's what I strive. Because my son was a struggling math student, and he was since first grade. I knew he was going to have a problem in math because it started in first grade. And that has been our struggle. And he was even one that had an IEP in math, but he graduated from the state of Georgia. My brother was his high school principal with a regular high school diploma. So it can be done, but it just takes a lot of people and consistency and different strategies to help students to achieve.
And I think you brought up a good point, because in urban education, I've seen it happen multiple times with teachers literally grabbing their bags and walking out. I'm done.
Right.
And then kids are left for the whole semester without a teacher or with a sub or through 30 subs, and we've lost a semester of learning because there's been no support. And oh, we could have a very long chat about that. Is there anything else? We're about almost near our time to end. Is there anything else that you would like the readers to know? Give them your web address so that I can put this on the screen where they can find your blog. And she also blogs at the Educators Room, so you guys can come on www.theeducatorsroom.com. But give them your blog information and how to find you on Facebook and Twitter.
You can find me on my blog at www.fuelgreatminds.com/blog. Also on Facebook, The Ignited Teacher. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, The Ignited Teach. So if you have any questions or concerns, and also I have a group, Teaching Tips for Struggling Learners. I have about almost 1,000 teachers in that group, and they come on, they have questions about how things should be taught or just to vent. You can find my group on Facebook and find me there talking about different things, because Lord knows I vent too. Because some days, like before Christmas, it was a struggle and I was ready to go. But you can find me on those different platforms, and I'm also on Google as well, The Ignited Teacher.
And, as we end this conversation and we talk about math, this is an ongoing concern of mine for math. I want to make sure, and Michelle is helping us to fill that void for math on the site. We have another great math writer, Jackie Parrish. But we just want to make sure, because I feel like sometimes math gets thrown to the wind in place of literacy, and math is just as important as social studies. It's just all important. And so we look forward to your articles, and we look forward to your Twitter chat. It's going to be on January 14th, correct? At what time?
At 8 o'clock, and it's only 30 minutes. That's all we're asking for.
We will definitely be there, and we will definitely
take a full shot in the arm, and we're going to send you packing.
Yay. So you guys take a second and make sure that you visit Michelle's blog, follow her on Twitter, get her Facebook group, and also go to theeducatorsroom.com, check out our awesome articles. If you're a teacher and you feel like that you want to write about your expertise, please drop us a line, info@theeducatorsroom.com. Follow us on Twitter @educatorsroom. Have a great night. And Michelle, hold on one second.